The story of the San Jose Earthquakes has historically always been that of the underdog. What it means to be a fan, of course, is different for everyone, but I think most people do resonate with that. A lot of the time, it feels like we're counted out and we're just trying to fulfill that David versus Goliath storyline. And although the Quakes ultimately did fall to LAFC 4-1 on the road, they did have their moments in this League's Cup of greatly exceeding expectations and shocking not only the opposition, but their fans. It was a wild ride, and we, the Quakesaholics, want to recount the moments and emotions that the Earthquakes gave us in this 2024 League's Cup performance.
It was impossible for me to think about the Leagues Cup without recalling what happened last year when we lost at home to Tigres. I remember the walk to the Tigres game felt like no other up until that point in that season. It was packed, people were selling all kinds of jerseys, hats, keychains, whatever you could fit a Tigres logo on. I also remember the flat and frustrating performance we had in Portland in a tournament where I remember feeling like we were just there to make up the numbers. This year felt the same. Chivas were playing well in La Apertura. Cade Cal was coming into the game having scored in his previous three matches. And I knew they were going to outnumber us in the stands 5-1, if not more. The parking lot tailgate probably could rival any NFL game, to be honest. Of course, the bleak outlook was also a consequence of this season up until that point. The Open Cup was a disgrace. The amount of games that we had lost in heartbreaking manner was absurd, and you couldn't help but begin to feel apathetic toward this rotten season. I thought we were gonna lose badly to Chivas and even worse to LA Galaxy. Despite those feelings, however, I knew it was at Levi's, a stadium we had not lost in, and where form did not matter.
The time finally came to play Chivas. It was a familiar venue, one we'd never lost in, but it didn't feel like it was our home game. The record setting nearly 51,000 capacity crowd felt like at most only 5,000 of us were for the black and blue. The opening moments of the game definitely reminded us of some of the other away games we've had: uncertainty, shakiness, and vulnerability. Cade Cowell's first run of the game was probably the most dangerous, evading defenders like we'd never seen him do for the Quakes before. But really, after that attack, there was no shakiness from the squad. They found their groove early and neutralized whatever plan Chivas thought they could beat us with. 6 minutes in, we had that moment that we'd been needing all season. Espinosa delivered a perfect cross to Abobasi, and in front of that massively Chivas favored crowd, rediscovers his 2021 finishing ability and gave us the lead. The reality was that a lot of us didn't believe in Jabo anymore. Even us, the Quakesaholics, were calling for Jud to get the starting role. But we had forgotten that Jabo's handle isn't King Jibo for no reason. He's a big time player and has always shown up for some big games, and this goal was only foreshadowing for what was to come. But before then, there were still over 85 minutes to play. To our surprise, the Quakes didn't settle for the one goal lead. They didn't bunker up as we've grown accustomed to this season. Instead, they kept pushing for more. A lot of the little details of the game are hard to remember because as a Quakes fan, there was just so much adrenaline in each play. It felt like being in a dream, seeing the team prevail in such a difficult environment, coming off this season that they've been having. 40, 50, 60, 70 minutes had gone by and we were still leading. That was the point where things changed though. All the boys had put in an incredible performance, but it came with a toll on their legs. Ian Russell was forced to make subs and chose to favor defending the lead. The task is circled back to what we've seen so many times over the past 2 years. With subs in a lead, hold that lead and see the game out. But this was different because Chivas couldn't muster up any tactics that could actually hurt us. They kept to their same game plan: long balls, crosses without intention, and a couple long shots which were easily contained by Daniel. Each shot stopped, only adding to our team's confidence. But we're the Quakes, and no one comes easy. Rodriguez had run his legs and heart off for the black and blue. His performances may be superhuman, but he's only human, and for the last 5 minutes of regulation time he was dealing with leg cramps. Despite going to the ground multiple times, the referee wouldn't stop the play, forcing him to play injured. After 3 of those plays, the ref finally let the medical staff attend Rodriguez. And then we got flashbacks to that terrible game in Portland. That feeling of going up against a 12-man team because the ref brought their preferences with them. Rodriguez was kept off the field for multiple minutes, enough for Chivas to equalize right before the final whistle. It was an absolutely gut-wrenching feeling. And of course, we got showered with beer from surrounding Chivas fans, celebrating and mocking us in the process. The game was tied, but it felt lost. It felt like Atlanta, it felt like Dallas, it felt like Austin. Thankfully, we had a chance of redemption through penalties, and the way they played out almost made it seem like it was meant to go to penalties. It started out in the best way possible with Chivas missing the first kick, but that moment was short-lived with Marie hitting the crossbar only 3 kicks later. Everything then on was just agonizing, but soon enough, Cade Cowell stepped to the spot and sent it into the third deck at Levi's. That was the edge we needed, and Vitor Costa would go on to seal the game for us to win 4-3 on penalties. The moment that last penalty kick went in was probably one of the most relieving moments of my life. We finally held on to a game, and on the biggest stage of the season. Say what you want about Leagues Cup, but this game gave us so many iconic moments, and it proved to fans that we have a team that can step up and compete. We talk about Matt Berzano being eternal for his heroics against the Sounders in the Open Cup a couple years back. For me, the same applies for Daniel, Rodriguez, Vitor Costa. Obrigado.
In light of the performance against Chivas, there was no knowing what version of the Quakes we were going to see against Galaxy. Going into the match, to be quite honest, it felt like getting a result versus Galaxy was a much bigger ask than getting one against Chivas. I thought the Earthquakes played resiliently for the majority of the game. In hindsight, it seems like the script writers for MLS have been getting lazy because we've seen this before. The Earthquakes played well to start, they created chances or found themselves in good places, but the finishing just was not there. Galaxy scored a goal that felt harsh in the moment. The Quakes did well to capitalize on a mistake from a poor back pass, and Jibo scored an instinctive finish. To close out the game, Quakes sit back, absorb pressure, and inevitably the Galaxy eventually find a way through with a ridiculous ball from Pooch, and all the work ends up amounting to nothing. A deflating end, but it's something this fan base has unfortunately become accustomed to. A reflection of the season, a lot of promise, a lot of huffing and puffing, with nothing to show for it.
Matchday 3 was conflicting. The Quakes weren't playing, and our fate was in the hands of the LA Galaxy. It was the first time I remember wanting the Galaxy to actually win because that was the only scenario that saw us make it out of the group. Logically, it seemed Galaxy should have easily beaten Chivas, but as the game developed, we realized that even in this situation as a Quakes fan, we had to suffer for the 90 minutes. I don't think I celebrated the Galaxy goals, but each goal definitely had at least a sigh of relief. In the last moments of the game, we flipped on the Necaxa Sounders game. There were implications there because at the time Necaxa were leading 2-1, but on goal differential behind the group leading Sounders, meaning should the Quakes make it out of the group, we'd be traveling to Seattle. So while Galaxy were leading 2-1, we were just hoping Necaxa would slip another goal so that we could host them. That third Necaxa goal did come, but seemingly at the exact same instant, Cade Cowell leveled the game against Galaxy. The Necaxa game ended favorably, but now down in Carson, the game continued into penalties. That penalty shootout felt almost as agonizing as the one in Levi's. We already don't like any of the Galaxy players, but Diego Fagundes found a way for us to dislike him even more when he missed his early penalty. I was convinced it was over for the Quakes, but thankfully Chivas went on to miss another two and lose 5-4 in penalties. All season it had felt like we'd been missing any element of luck, but the group stage ended in the best way possible. We advanced out of the group and we'd be hosting our next match up against Necaxa.
Necaxa. What a surreal match. It had the general feeling of a friendly match, whether due to the fact that there was not that many people at the game or the fact that it was a team I've never heard of. It just felt a lot like one of those random mid-season friendlies that get thrown into your season ticket holder package. The feeling at the match was not congruent with the occasion, but right from the beginning there was an obvious gap in quality between Necaxa and San Jose. Every time a San Jose player beat their Necaxan counterpart, they were offered 10 to 20 yards of space to run into and make a pass between the back line and midfield of Necaxa. Another difference between this match and the other matches previously was that San Jose was clinical. Hernan, Yule, and Jibo, they did not hesitate. They were fully confident in their superiority over Necaxa, and that feeling of ease was infectious. Necaxa were well and truly beaten. It was a great game which gave the fans something to feel proud of. And with all due respect to Necaxa, the team needed a match where they were unquestionably superior and a long overdue break from the uneasiness that came from watching Quakes throughout the entire season. The players, the staff, and the fans not only deserved but needed a performance like that.
Leaving PayPal Park after the Necaxa thrashing, we knew our next opponent would be LAFC on the road. Objectively, the matchup was unfavorable. Our last time there was a 6-2 loss, our worst of the season, and served as the catalyst for sacking Luchi Gonzalez. This time felt different because it felt like we had finally found our groove. The system under Ian Russell stopped us from leaking goals, and the Necaxa game served as proof that we had goal-scoring ability. It was just a matter of putting the two together. But it's still LAFC, and we've gone enough road game trips to know that that's the hardest place to get a result. If there was ever a time to get that win on the road in LA, though, it was this one. We hadn't had a more favorable context going into the game. Even walking into the stadium, the vibe felt different though. The LA fans didn't come out like they usually do, but when the game started, the 32-52 was as rowdy as they usually are. Not a lot of meaningful lyrics, but still definitely a lot of generic noise. The first half, it actually felt like we were level. Especially when Hernan scored the equalizer, it felt like the Quakes could really pull it off. But the individual errors that have plagued us all season crept into this game as well. Right before the half, we gave up the penalty, and in the second half, slowly we made more mistakes. It also didn't help that our early game chances were denied by arguably one of the best keepers in the league. Any other keeper and the Pellegrino shot would have gone in, and maybe the Espinosa strike from distance as well. But this game is cruel like that sometimes. Just how fortune was there for us in getting out of the group, fortune abandoned us against LAFC. We lost 4-1, and deservedly so. The dream that's been League's Cup came to a crashing halt.
Despite the way it ended, Ian Russell succeeded in making the players and the fans feel like League's Cup was truly a new season. A lot of players played well overall, and if they had faced any other team Other than LAFC in the round of 16, we could have extended our run even longer. Hopefully, they can continue the momentum set by this run and have more opportunities to demonstrate the quality that is there when things are going right.
Now that it's over, the only thing left to do is say thank you to the players. What we've been wanting to see all season long is a competitive team that goes all in and gives everything they have. The Quakes finally did that, and in doing so have reignited the fans' belief that greatness is achievable. Thank you.